Hello everyone, this is Falcon202 from Modern Gaming TV. Metal Gear 5 is out and the wait is finally over. But before I play it, I thought it'd be useful if I make this video explaining the whole of the story of the Metal Gear franchise. Why? Because I care about my fellow gamers and I want them to have the best experience possible of one of my favourite games of all time. I hope that after this video you're able to be conversant in the Metal Gear story and do not find the story confusing at all. It is also hoped that this video clears up any doubts you have about any bit of the story. The Metal Gear installments and its numbering are not released in chronological order. Because of that, we'll proceed in the actual chronological order to avoid confusing you. By the way, this is the actual list in order. So where to begin? We'll begin with the Philosophers, as they are key to understanding the genesis of most of the conflicts throughout the series. Why? Because of the Philosopher's legacy. What is the Philosopher's legacy? Well, good question. The Philosopher's legacy is a $100 billion secret fund. Who are the Philosophers? The Philosophers are a secret organization consisting of a number of authority figures from America, post-revolutionary Russia, and China at the onset of the 20th century. One of the members is Joy's father, also known as the original boss in Metal Gear Solid 3. In the 1930s, the last of the original members died, and the organization was no longer what it used to be and started to be corrupt, as opposed to being an organization trying to make a peaceful world. We'll touch more upon this later. So moving on to the first Metal Gear Solid in chronological order, that will be Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is set in the 1960 Cold War era. The Philosopher's legacy was misappropriated by Boris Volgin, a Red Army officer, an extremely wealthy member of the Philosophers. Eventually, his son Yevgeny Borisovich Volgin, aka the Thunderbolt, inherits the money illegally to launch a nuclear program within the walls of Groznygrad Fortress. In response to that, the CIA drafted Naked Snake to extract the Russian scientist Sokolov from his USSR captors before the weapon was unleashed upon the world, and to escort him to the West. By escorting him to the West, it would prevent Volgin's plan from coming into fruition, as Sokolov is needed to complete the Shagohod. The unit that Snake would carry out this operation with was called Fox, which was a top-secret arm of the CIA. The mission was called the Virtuous Mission. This would be Fox's first ever mission. The CO of the mission would be Zero, who is an important character in the series and one we need to be mindful of. Snake enters the mission via the world's first Halo jump and commences the solar infiltration. He ends up making contact with Sokolov and the two escape. However, Snake falls before Colonel Volgin and the boss, who beats him pretty badly and leaves him for dead. It appears that the boss has defected from America to the Soviet Union. Due to Naked Snake getting his ass handed to him, Sokolov is subsequently imprisoned by the USSR again. Snake, being heavily wounded, successfully recovers using the full-ton recovery system and returns to America. Colonel Volgin uses the Davy Crockett nuclear warheads to destroy the Secret Design Bureau OKB-754 Naked Snake just infiltrated and frames the boss for it. After 1 week back at home, Snake commences a new mission called Operation Snake Eater. Naked Snake is inclined to do this mission as the US government is wary of him following Big Boss's defection. Politically, things are looking dire for the US, because when the Design Bureau was nuked by Volgin via the Davy Crockett warhead, the Soviet government blamed America due to the detection of the intrusion of a combat talent transport plane, i.e. the plane in which Naked Snake jumped out of to do the Virtuous mission, and because the Davy Crockett is an American-designed warhead. In other words, the evidence made it look like it was the United States doing. The US maintained that it was the act of the boss, and not their doing. The USSR was not having any of it and demanded it be proven by eliminating the boss. Failing to do so result in the USSR shifting to an active combat stance. To avoid World War III, the states decided to sacrifice the boss. We'll touch more upon this later. Subsequently, Naked Snake begins Operation Snake Eater. The objectives of this mission were to 1. Recover Sokolov, without getting ass kicked this time, 2. Destroy the newly developed Shagohod, and 3. Eliminate the boss who had defected to the Soviet Union. The Soviet government also sends an Adam to assist Naked Snake in his mission, whom we come to know as Revolver Ocelot. Having failed to initially make contact with Naked Snake, the USSR sends in Eva instead, who becomes Naked Snake's love interest and is present throughout the game. We eventually learn that Eva was a double agent for China, as opposed to being an agent for Russia. But we'll touch more on her in a bit. We do see Adam throughout the Metal Gear franchise, and he is an important part of the story as a whole, as he later becomes the main villain of the game. Revolver Ocelot is the son of the boss and the Sorrow, a psychic member of the Cobra unit. He was plucked away from his parents on the battlefield immediately after his birth by the Philosophers. Throughout his installment, he is completely oblivious that at times he would be standing right next to his actual parents. In Metal Gear Solid 3, we see a growing friendship or mutual respect blossom between Naked Snake and Ocelot, but we will return to Ocelot later on. So Operation Snake Eater begins, and involves Naked Snake fighting each member of the Cobra unit, taking part in emotive and tough battles, with each individual member having an impressive, and in some cases tragic backstory. After nearly dealing with each Cobra unit member and destroying the Shagohod, Snake goes to fulfill the last and most difficult part of the mission, to end the boss. Then we have a dramatic and heart-wrenching battle between Naked Snake and the boss, where Snake ultimately deals the final blow reluctantly. The scene becomes iconic and an unforgettable moment in Naked Snake's story. Towards the end of Metal Gear Solid 3, we find that a lot of deception and dishonesty has been going on. We learn the real intentions of the American government at the outset, which was to secure the Philosopher's legacy in Volgin's possession. The events in the 1964 Virtuous mission / Boss's defection had been staged by the US to put the boss in contact with Volgin with the aim of potentially acquiring the Philosopher's legacy. But due to the political failures, the boss was forced to offer up her own life. In other words, it was her orders to get killed by Naked Snake. She effectively gave up her life in order for America to be politically pardoned. The former boss was loyal all along. At the end, we also learned that Eva was actually a double agent for China, not a USSR agent or spy. She steals the microfilm containing the location of the Philosopher's legacy that Naked Snake recovers and returns with it to China, abandoning Naked Snake. However, it turned out to be fake, with the real microfilm landing in the hands of the CIA thanks to Revolver Ocelot triple spying on everyone. Eva, having failed, fled to Hanoi and disappears. The director of the CIA decides to retain the funds himself, as he saw the whole mission as a failure to the government. We come back to him and the legacy in a bit. What we need to make clear is that it is currently with him. It is important to know that the CIA director only possesses half of the legacy, so the director only has half, but we'll touch more upon this in a bit. Snake inherits the title of Big Boss. He also has a feeling of regret, resentment, and disillusionment following the events of Snake Eater, and he decides to go AWOL. Next up in chronological order will be Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops. This installment is set in the 1970s in Colombia. Naked Snake gets captured and tortured by Cunningham of Fox, which was the unit that Naked Snake was previously in. Fox are trying to find the whereabouts of the other half of the Philosopher's legacy from Snake. With the US already being in possession of half of it from Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake is imprisoned in a cell next to Roy Campbell, who becomes a big character in all the other Metal Gear Solids. Snake learns through Campbell that they're on the San Jeronimo Peninsula, the site of an abandoned Soviet missile silo in Colombia. Snake and Campbell break out, and Naked Snake tries to contact his old CO, Major Zero. Instead, he bumps into his old Fox comrades, who reveal that Snake and Zero are being accused of instigating the Fox revolt, and that, for Snake to clear his name, he needs to apprehend Gene and the current leader of Fox. Since the previous installment, Fox has gone rogue. Naked Snake and Roy Campbell, whom we see in many other installments, band together to make Foxhound, formed to deal with the defected Fox unit. The new Renegade Fox unit is under the control of the main villain of the installment, Gene, aka Viper. Fox has mainly defected to build a successor to the Shagohod, Metal Gear. Gene takes over the Soviet base on San Jeronimo Peninsula and steals the intercontinental ballistic Metal Gear, issuing a threat to the CIA that he would launch it into the Soviet Union, triggering a clusterfuck. During Naked Snake's quest to topple Gene, he encounters Frank Jaeger, aka Grey Fox, who we see in several Metal Gear installments. In this installment, people call him the Null, but we'll touch more upon this later. Snake also defeats the other renegade members of the Fox unit, eventually getting to Gene. When the pair eventually attempt to topple Gene, we learn what Gene's ambitions were. Gene actually intends to launch Metal Gear at the CIA headquarters and the Pentagon to break the Philosopher's control and to build Army's Heaven, which will be a paradise for soldiers. By firing the two nukes at the two locations, Gene believes that it would crush the existing world order. To make matters worse, Gene intends to fire the nukes from Russia so that it would look like they did it. So let's talk a little bit more about what Gene's Army's Heaven involves. Gene talks about Army's Heaven involving a new nation of mercenaries, consisting of the most capable soldiers, an organization of shadows intervening in conflicts all over the world. He also goes on to say that Army's Heaven would aim to achieve global domination, accomplishing what the philosophers could not achieve with their legacy and influence. Gene believes that national and political interests should not tie down soldiers and be separate. We also learn that the boss's death was all set up by the United States to prove its innocence, but Gene says very little as to who actually pulled the strings behind this at the encounter. Gene launches the nuke. While the missile is preparing to launch, the local militia, whom Naked Snake recruits during the campaign, damage it to the point where it crumbles in transit, effectively thwarting the plan of Gene to launch the missile and topple the existing power structures. During his dying moments, Gene also gives the remainder of the legacy to Naked Snake, as well as personnel, information, and equipment of Army's Heaven. I'd also like to point out an interesting bit before the encounter with Jean. When Ursula gets stabbed by Jean, she sort of prophesizes the whole story to Naked Snake. I'll show you the scene now. It's quite interesting, actually.
Snake. Oh, Snake. Everything is clear now. The futures we saw were one and the same. Snake, you will destroy Metal Gear. And you will create a new Metal Gear in its place. Your children, les enfants terribles. Snake, your son will bring the world to ruin. Your son will save the world.
What are you trying to say, Elisa? Elisa!
After the ending, we see Revolver Ocelot, the triple spy for the Philosophers, bump into the director of the CIA, who is on his way to the shelter as they still think the nuke is on its way. He mentions that he is also carrying with him documents related to the Philosophers, saying that it is important because even if the United States were to be nuked, the Philosophers would be born again. The documents in possession of the director of the CIA were a list of members and locations of the portions of the legacy stashed around the world. Those documents would enable the continuing existence of the Philosophers. Ocelot guns down the director's guards and the director himself, mentioning that his intentions are to destroy the Philosophers and to further the aims of the Patriots. He tends to do this with the remainder of the legacy. We also learn all along that it was Zero, Naked Snake's old CEO, that was pulling the strings and using Jean as bait to acquire the legacy and to form the Patriots. The members of the Patriots at the beginning would be Ocelot, Big Boss, Eva, Sigint, who would later be the DARPA chief, and Paramedic. If you're not knowing who Paramedic is, by the way, he was the creator of Grey Fox, who we see later on in the Metal Gear Solid franchise, and who Grey Fox will then kill Paramedic. That's why we don't see Paramedic. Forming a group that would supplant the Philosophers, the Patriots were born. This is when the Patriots were made. Ocelot only joined on the condition that Big Boss was willing to take part, which he does do for a while. Big Boss then leaves the Patriots following the events of Les Enfants Terribles. What is Les Enfants Terribles? Well, following Naked Snake's fatal injury in the battlefield, Les Enfants Terribles was a project launched under the supervision of Major Zero. This project launched in 1972 to artificially produce the Ultimate Soldier using Big Boss's DNA. Zero wanted this done so that he could have an icon for the Patriots. Analog cloning techniques and the Super Baby method were used to produce two clones, which we will know in Metal Gear Solid 1 as Solid and Liquid Snake. The project uses Eva as the surrogate mother, Naked Snake's former love interest, if you've forgotten already. The clones have a few horrific safety measures in place. The first is that their DNA is programmed to age faster than the average human being, which is why Solid Snake is so old in Metal Gear Solid 4. Because both clones are seen as inferior, a third was made, which was branded the Perfect Clone, and we see him in the end of Metal Gear Solid 2. His name is Solidus. When Big Boss finds out about the events of Les Enfants Terribles, he leaves the Patriots thinking that they have gone too far, and creates his own mercenary group called Militaires Sans Frontières. We'll refer to that as MSF from here on outwards. Next in chronological order is Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Now that we know that Big Boss has his own mercenary group, his new task force is drafted in Costa Rica in 1974 to tackle another Metal Gear threat, which he only discovers after being asked to investigate an army that had discreetly occupied parts of Costa Rica by Galvez Mina and Paz Ortega. Naked Snake was reluctant to take up the request as he detected Galvez as working for the KGB. The reason he went ahead with the mission was because Paz played a recording of the boss, which seems puzzling given that she died in Metal Gear Solid 3 at Naked Snake's hands. He goes on to discover that Hot Coldman, a senior CIA agent / villain of the game, intends to fire a live nuclear weapon as part of a project codenamed Peace Walker. Snake reveals himself to Huey Emmerich, who is one of the designers he gets him to help stop the plans of the villain. Snake then meets Dr. Strangelove, who tells him that the Peace Walker's AI resembles the boss's. She asks whether the boss genuinely defected, or did she die as part of her orders? She's trying to find out if she was loyal all along, and whether she put her weapon down voluntarily for her country. After Naked Snake passes out from the torturing, Strangelove gets her answer anyways, and the AI goes on to then be completed. Then breaks out of custody and proceeds with the mission. When Naked Snake confronts Coldman reveals that the idea of a nuclear deterrent is flawed, as it relies on retaliation in the event of a nuclear exchange. He goes on to say humans are unwilling to destroy their own race. However, if it was passed down to an AI, this would guarantee retaliation. Hence Peace Walker. Galvez then decides to storm the base with his KGB comrades in an attempt to hijack Peace Walker. The standoff is broken by the arrival of MSF and the Sandinistas, giving Snake enough time to destroy the Peace Walker. In the aftermath of the battle, Galvez is captured and Coldman mortally wounded. In his dying moments, he activates Peace Walker's data uplink, which convinces the United States that she is about to be hit by a Soviet missile. Snake contacts the state's government and tries to convince them to stand down, to no avail. Nuclear war being imminent, the Peace Walker's damaged AI decides to sink itself and drowns in the lake, severing the connection and ending the threat. The scene was a harrowing, tragic, and powerful one. I'll play snippets of it now.
That song.
Boss, is that you?
How in the...
A ghost in machine? She's drowning herself to stop the transmission.
Look!
It's functional compensation. When the human brain is damaged, sometimes it recovers over time. Other parts of the brain take over the functions of the damaged parts. Mammal and reptile were patterned after different parts of the human brain. When those parts were assembled together into one, they must have become capable of functional compensation. Clearly not thinking rationally. It's not using its head. It's using its heart.
This is the fate she chose for herself.
The boss's innocence has been proven. Do you hear it, Snake? Do you hear the boss's song?
You saw it, didn't you? When you went to space, that there's beauty outside of battle. At last, I understand. In the end, it was you who put down your gun and chose instead to sing. They can all hear you. I know they can. And your will shall surely live on. That's what you wanted. So much that you gave up everything you had. But you couldn't achieve it. Isn't that right? And still, all you can do is sing. There's no peace to be found anywhere. And so, we can only keep on hoping. Hoping for the illusion we call peace.
The scene was quite powerful and ends on a note that peace is an illusion we constantly hope for. We also find that Paz, a character present in this installment, was actually a triple agent acting for Major Zero of Cypher. She hijacks Metal Gear's Z-Key, which was MSF's deterrent designed by Huey. She gives Snake an ultimatum to surrender MSF to Cypher. Snake refuses, and after damaging Z-Key, Paz is thrown into the ocean. You see Paz again in Ground Zeroes. Snake decides to carry out his own version of Army's Heaven, calling it Outer Heaven.
We will forsake our countries. We will leave our motherlands behind us and become one with this earth. We have no nation, no philosophy, no ideology. We go where we're needed, fighting not for country, not for government, but for ourselves. We need no reason to fight. We fight because we are needed. We will be the deterrent for those with no other recourse. We are soldiers without borders, our purpose defined by the era we live in. We will sometimes have to sell ourselves and services. If the times demand it, we'll be revolutionaries, criminals, terrorists, and yes, we may all be headed straight to hell. But what better place for us than this? It is our only home. Our heaven and our hell. This is Outer Heaven.
Next up in chronological order is Metal Gear Ground Zeroes. You can actually download this on next-gen consoles and current-gen consoles. You should play it. It's a really good precursor to Metal Gear 5. Moving on. A paramilitary force called XOF, who is headed by Skullface, has captured Paz and Chico and has imprisoned them in the Cuban prison facility known as Camp Omega. XOF are trying to locate Zero's location, who is in hiding at the time, and are interrogating Paz. The reason they are interrogating Paz is because she was a double agent for Cypher, a spy group ran by Zero. Paz also knows a great deal about MSF, as she was inside the armed fortress living with its inhabitants for a while on site. Before embarking on rescuing Paz, Big Boss is aware about a UN inspection request of Mother Base to see whether there are actually any nukes on the site. Emmerich, seeing this as an opportunity to quell any fears the UN has by hiding their weapons and openly allowing them to inspect, thinks this will be advantageous, as it will calm down any suspicions. The group decided to allow the inspection while they rescue Paz and Chico. After breaking out the prisoners and heading back to Mother Base, a bomb planted in Paz's stomach is removed by hand without anesthetic. Upon returning to Mother Base, we see that it is in flames and getting destroyed and attacked by XOF. The group rescues Kazuya Miller and flee the scene. As they are fleeing, Paz notifies that there is one more bomb inside her. She jumps out of the plane so that the blast radius of the bomb does not kill the passengers, with seconds left on it to detonate. Instead, it fatally wounds them, with Snake going into a 9-year coma, hence the entrance of Metal Gear 5. Post-credits, we find that Paz tells Skullface where Zero is in the end after going through some grueling torture. Next up is Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. Seeing as how this game was released yesterday, we've not had enough time to be able to complete the story and give you a full in-depth story explanation. So this is the part where there will be a gap. But after Metal Gear Solid 5 in the storyline will be Metal Gear. This will be the original Metal Gear that was released in the 1980s, and I can appreciate most of you have not played it, but I can still explain the story for you. Happily to do so. Moving on. Metal Gear. Metal Gear was set in 1995 in South Africa. Outer Heaven now is an armed fortress nation established by we know who, Big Boss. The West have found that a weapon of mass destruction capable of rewriting war history is under development at Outer Heaven. The West draft Foxhound to take care of the situation. Big Boss would be Commander-in-Chief and would send in Grey Fox first, who we will see as a ninja in Metal Gear Solid 1. The operation would be called Operation Intrude N313. Grey Fox goes missing in action after a few days, and his last message is Metal Gear. Then comes Solid Snake, who is sent in after Grey Fox goes missing. After being sent in and talking to local resistance members, Solid Snake finds out that a weapon that sounds like a Metal Gear bipedal tank is being made by the mercenary group, the purpose of which was for Outer Heaven to establish its military superiority over the entire world. Solid Snake subsequently rescues Dr. Petrovic and his daughter. Dr. Petrovic tells Solid Snake how to destroy Metal Gear. As Snake is progressing, he is realizing that traps are being made almost as if his whereabouts and actions are being leaked or known about. Snake engages in deadly battles with the help of the local resistance to eventually get to the 100th floor of Outer Heaven, where Metal Gear is being developed. Snake ultimately succeeds in destroying it. Upon destroying Metal Gear, Snake tries to escape the facility to only then bump into Big Boss, who explains how he acquired and managed to get the resources to build Outer Heaven. Big Boss also explains to Solid Snake that he was the leader of Outer Heaven, and the villain so to speak. He reveals that the purpose of the mission Foxhound was tasked for was to cause information confusion to the West. Big Boss did not think Snake would get this far, however. He commences the self-destruction countdown, and a battle between the two start, with Solid Snake being victorious. Outer Heaven also collapsed, Solid Snake watching it burn from afar. Next up in the story will be Metal Gear 2. Metal Gear 2 was set in 1999. There being an energy crisis, supply of petroleum was running out faster than expected. A Czech genius and biologist, Dr. Keo Marv, invented something called Oilix, which is a microorganism that refines petroleum to produce a highly purified form of petroleum. There was a lot of hope upon this discovery. Dr. Keo Marv then gets abducted by someone and disappears. Nations begin investigating immediately. Investigations were pointing to Zanzibar land, a democratic military regime suddenly appearing in Central Asia in 1997. Zanzibar land, like Outer Heaven, was a mercenary/armed fortress nation, a military nation with strong mercenaries. The United States ordered Roy Campbell to be Commander-in-Chief of Foxhound to rescue Dr. Marv. Campbell would task Solid Snake to do the mission. The mission was to get Dr. Marv and Oilix back. We also find that as the story progresses, that Dr. Petrovic was abducted again, so that he can work on another Metal Gear. Later on in the game, we happen to find that Dr. Petrovic has been deceiving Solid Snake and the Foxhound unit all along. Snake then gets information that Dr. Petrovic has been going to Zanzibar land voluntarily to develop the new Metal Gear. And Snake proceeds to rescue Dr. Marv, but finds that he is too late and instead finds his corpse. We learn that Dr. Petrovic just strangled Dr. Marv moments before Snake got in the room. The reason being was getting frustrated because Dr. Marv would not tell Dr. Petrovic where the cartridge containing the Oilix structure plans was. In fact, Petrovic conducted the abduction of Dr. Marv. When Snake finds this out, Petrovic attacks him, but Snake obviously puts him in the dirt and gets the structural plans for Oilix. After killing Dr. Petrovic, Snake subsequently gets attacked by Grey Fox, who's manning a Metal Gear. Solid Snake encounters Grey Fox again, but then makes short work of him. However, it's important to note that Grey Fox is not dead for Snake
good,
then finds
as we
Big
see
Boss,
him in Metal Gear
defeats
Solid
him
1.
and leaves him for dead. However, Major Zero immediately sweeps up Naked Snake's body and puts him in cryo. It's important to note that Naked Snake is still alive, and we do see him again in the end of Metal Gear Solid 4, but we'll touch more upon this later. After the events of Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake goes into retirement in Alaska. Next up in the series is Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid was set in 2005. A fair amount of time since the infamous Solid Snake killed Big Boss on Zanzibar land. After spending quite a bit of time in retirement in his cabin in Alaska, armed men show up surrounding his cabin. Given that he is outnumbered and that resisting would be useless, he goes with the men who take him on board the USS Discovery submarine. Aboard the craft, Snake gets strip-searched and confined within a small room, not even knowing what is going on. Roy Campbell and Dr. Naomi Hunter, who's the medical staff, explain the situation to Snake. The situation being that Foxhound went renegade and that they have taken over a nuclear disposal facility in Alaska's Fox Archipelago. Hostages were taken and the group demand that the government turn over the remains of Big Boss. Failure to comply within 24 hours would result in the launch of a nuclear weapon. Snake was reluctant to take this mission until Roy Campbell showed them who the leader was, which was Liquid Snake. And so the mission begins. Near the beginning, Snake proceeds and tries to free the two high-profile hostages, Kenneth Baker, President, and DARPA Chief Donald Anderson from Armstech Organization. Both of them die of abrupt heart failure. Snake then locates Hal Otacon Emmerich, the primary engineer of Metal Gear Rex. Upon meeting him, Snake gets into a fight with a mysterious figure who appears to be in an exoskeleton suit and looks like a cyborg ninja. After a pissy affair and grueling hand-to-hand battle in the labs, Snake defeats the ninja. Snake is confused as to who this person is, as he keeps talking as if he knows who Snake is. He refers to himself as Deep Throat at the beginning parts of the game. No, literally he does. He finds out that it was Grey Fox, the person he defeated at Zanzibar Land, and the person Naked Snake encounters in Portable Ops called the Null. Naomi Hunter comments that Dr. Emmett Clark may have had something to do with his resurrection, but that Clark died in a lab accident years ago before the Shadow Moses incident. Solid Snake also encounters Meryl, who had been stationed at the facility prior to it being taken over. The two quickly fall in love with each other, and Meryl gives Snake a keycard that can override Metal Gear's detonation code and eliminate the threat. The two travel together towards the underground maintenance base, but they hastily get split apart from Sniper Wolf, who keeps shooting an exposed Meryl in an attempt to lure Snake out of hiding.
Take him away!
Don't! The terrorists eventually capture Snake, including Meryl. Snake is imprisoned and goes through a grueling interrogation carried out by Revolver Ocelot, in which the player has to repeatedly smash a button to withstand the torture. If the player fails, then a sad ending will befall them, as the game has two alternative endings, depending on whether the player is successful in this bit. After the interrogation, Snake breaks out of imprisonment with the assistance of Otacon and the use of ketchup. Snake receives a call from Miller that Naomi Hunter is a traitor. He goes on to tell Snake that there is evidence of a newly developed experimental assassination weapon in the Pentagon, one which Snake may be injected with, along with a multitude of standardized vaccinations during his mission briefing. The weapon targeted only specific people and eradicated its victims in the manner that the DARPA chief and Kenneth Baker died in, including Liquid Snake. Colonel Campbell places Naomi under arrest after sending coded transmissions to the Alaskan base. As Snake approaches the underground maintenance base, Naomi manages to contact Snake to confirm that she had injected Snake with fox dye as an act of revenge for what he had done at Zanzibar Land, killing Frank Jaeger, aka Grey Fox, who was Naomi's brother. Roy Campbell places Naomi back under arrest once she is found again. As Snake progresses to Rex's chamber, he tries to deactivate Metal Gear using the keycard Meryl gave him. However, it did the opposite and Metal Gear was actually activated. Snake had been set up all along. He would then be contacted by Master Miller, who confirms that he indeed acted as a pawn throughout the mission, and that the real Miller was dead and that the person imitating him was Liquid Snake all along. Use of the PAL keys was Liquid's final option, because if the codes had not been entered, then it would engage Rex. Use of the PAL keys was Liquid's final option. Why? Because if the codes had not been entered, then it would engage Rex. If it had been entered, it would disengage it. The code was not entered from the beginning because the terrorists could not figure out the DARPA chief's launch code. After Solid Snake was used as a pawn and ended up activating Metal Gear Rex, Liquid jumps into Rex and tries to kill Solid Snake. As Snake is about to be killed, Grey Fox leaps in to buy Solid Snake some time.
Hurry! Get away! Grey Fox!
However, he gets destroyed gruesomely and is squished repeatedly by Rex. He does manage to destroy the radome just before he is killed by firing his weapon into the air with the last ounces of strength in his body. As Rex falls back from the destroyed radome, Grey collapses into a bloody pool of his own blood and speaks out one last line.
Snake! We're not tools of the government or anyone else. Fighting was the only thing I was good at. But at least, I always fought for what I believed in. Snake!
and then gets flattened horrendously. Snake finally destroys Rex, sending him flying and knocking off a wall, getting knocked out. He wakes up with Liquid on top of Rex. It is here that Liquid reveals his purpose and intent. Liquid's intent was that he wanted to establish Big Boss's dream and create a world where soldiers would be revered, honored, and above all, needed as they once were. Colonel Campbell notifies Snake that the Pentagon wants to bury the evidence by bombing the facility. He has bought Snake some time by disrupting the launch, giving him ample amount of time to escape. Campbell subsequently gets arrested by the Secretary of Defense, Jim Hausman. Hausman explains the true nature of the operation from the beginning, that being that Snake was used as a vector to spread the Foxdie virus by coming into contact with the terrorists and anyone else in the base. It was intended that the government would steal Rex, but seeing as how Solid Snake has destroyed that, the government will bury it along with the facility. Solid Snake and Liquid Snake battle, and Snake wins. Snake throws Liquid off the top and tries to get out of the facility with Meryl by jeep.
Snake!
They realize that Liquid is chasing them through the tunnel as well, and at the end of the tunnel both of them crash. Snake wakes to find that Liquid has his sights aimed between his eyes, but suddenly dies by Foxdie. Lucky, right? Campbell gets in touch with Snake via codec and notifies him that the president has called off the bombings as the Secretary of Defense had been acting alone this entire time. He also gets a call by Naomi, who tells him that the Foxdie in him was programmed to trigger randomly. Meryl and Snake, or Otacon and Snake depending on what ending you have, find a nearby snowmobile and escape. Meryl and Snake probably have a relationship. Otacon contacts Snake a few weeks later, mentioning that Ocelot was the sole surviving terrorist and had sold Metal Gear's data on the black market. Now other countries and private military corporations may be making their own Metal Gear. Otacon convinces Solid Snake to join and make a new group called Philanthropy, which would be an anti-Metal Gear group officially recognized by the United Nations. Since the creation of Philanthropy, dozens of rogue Metal Gears would be destroyed around the world following that. Next up in chronological order is Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. The story here begins 2007 in Manhattan. Otacon has received an anonymous tip that the Marine Corps has developed a new model of Metal Gear and was transporting it on a tanker. This would be the next operation for Philanthropy. Solid Snake being the operative, the objective here was to infiltrate the tanker, carrying the new device, photograph it, and leak the pictures to the media to bring the Black Project to light. Not so fast. Moments after boarding the tanker, an unknown group of soldiers seizes the ship and takes it over, nearly killing half of the crew stationed in the upper decks. Snake takes a photo of the leader and sends it to Otacon to ID him. Otacon identifies him as Colonel Sergei Golokovich, head of the Russian private band of mercenaries. Before going in, Snake also fights the daughter of Golokovich, but does not kill her. The daughter's name was Olga. She's the woman with short hair, if you don't remember. After infiltrating the tanker and getting into the cargo holds, Snake sees Metal Gear and the Marines stood in front of it, listening to the commandant's speech. Snake takes the snaps of Ray and sends it to Otacon. After the speech, Revolver Ocelot shows up again. If you don't remember, he's the same man from the Shadow Moses incident, etc., etc. After the speech, Revolver Ocelot shows up, kills Colonel Golokovich and his men. He blows a hole into the tanker and proceeds to Metal Gear. As Snake tries to stop him, he notices that Liquid takes over Ocelot at random times through his arm, which is also why he says to Snake after noticing him,
"It's been a while, brother."
Who are you?
You know who I am.
Liquid?
The exchange is interrupted by a huge gush of water and the tanker sinks. Snake manages to escape, being absent for a large portion of the game. Ocelot escapes with Ray. As Ray is swimming to the ocean, Ocelot comes back to himself and takes a call confirming that he has photographic evidence of Snake on the scene. How? Well, the moment that Solid Snake boards the tanker, you see a floating cipher at the beginning. That was actually taking photos of Solid Snake. Revolver Ocelot goes on to say that the photos would be given to the press, so it looks like Solid Snake was the terrorist behind the tanker sinking. Snake and Otacon nevertheless leaked their photos, but the press saw them as the culprit. The tanker also caused an oil spillage, which meant that an oil decontamination facility was set up, called Big Shell. In the call, Ocelot makes it clear that he is addressing the president, who at the time was Solidus. Snake and Otacon keep a low profile for a while. Fast forward to 2009, Big Shell was not really an offshore cleanup. On April 29th, 2009, Raiden is operating under a reformed Foxhound. He has orders to infiltrate the Big Shell to rescue hostages, including the United States President, from the terrorist group Sons of Liberty, who claim that their leader is Solid Snake. Backed up by the rogue anti-terror training unit Dead Cell, who are also threatening to destroy the facility, the members of Dead Cell are Fat Man, Vamp, and Fortune. Dead Cell is an arm of the Navy SEALs set up by Solid Snake during his presidency. All of the Navy SEAL team sent in to address the issue are killed by Dead Cell members Vamp and Fortune, except for two, Pliskin and Stillman. Stillman, by the way, is a legendary bomb diffuser. Big Shell is patrolled by the surviving Russian mercenaries from the Tanker Chapter, led now by Olga, Golokovich's daughter, if you don't remember from earlier on, and believes Snake was responsible for her father's murder. The remaining members of the SEAL assault team, Pliskin, who's actually Solid Snake in disguise, and Peter Stillman, join Raiden to disable explosives planted on the shell by Stillman's former pupil, Fat Man, now a terrorist. Stillman is killed by Fat Man's booby trap in Shell 2, though he manages to warn Raiden in time, who successfully disables the respective bomb in Shell 1, preventing the sinking of the facility. Raiden then survives a direct confrontation with Fortune and Vamp, and kills Fat Man on the heliport. As Raiden searches for the president, he begins to doubt Pliskin's identity, but agrees to the plan of transporting hostages off the Big Shell with a helicopter. However, they are attacked by the leader of the Sons of Liberty, who identifies himself as Solid Snake, who is actually Solidus. Pliskin, however, shouts that the man is not Snake and assists Raiden in fending off the leader when he attacks with a Harrier jet piloted by Vamp. The battle ends with the Harrier being shot down, though it is seized by the Metal Gear Ray seen in the Tanker Chapter, and the two terrorists escape. Pliskin reveals himself to be the real Solid Snake, who along with Otacon helps Raiden locate the president. When Raiden finally contacts President Johnson, he is informed that the Big Shell is a facade to hide a new Metal Gear known as Arsenal Gear. It houses a powerful AI called GW, which is capable of controlling the transmission of digital information. Raiden moves on to disabling Arsenal Gear. She rescues an engineer by the name of Emma Emmerich, who happens to be Otacon's adoptive sister, who agrees to help upload a virus into the GW mainframe. However, the upload is interrupted halfway when Emma is attacked by Vamp. Raiden then defeats Vamp by shooting him again. Although the injuries Emma suffers prove fatal, Otacon escapes with the surviving hostages, while Raiden is captured by Olga when Solid Snake seemingly betrays him. Raiden makes his way through the bowels of the facility to rendezvous with Snake after getting out of the torture chamber with Olga's help. His commanding officer, the Colonel, begins to act very erratically. Upon investigation, Otacon reveals that the Colonel is actually a construct of the GW supercomputer, and that the partially uploaded virus is beginning to damage its systems. Raiden reunites with Snake and his gear, and the two then encounter Fortune, who fights Snake while Raiden searches for Solidus. He is then forced into battle with 25 Metal Gear Ray units in Arsenal Gear. Olga protects him before Solidus kills her and captures Snake and Raiden.
Live! You have to!
Ocelot reveals that he too is a Patriot agent, and that the entire Big Shell mission was a carefully coordinated attempt to reenact the events of the Shadow Moses incident for the purposes of creating a soldier, Raiden on par with Solid Snake. Ocelot kills Fortune before being possessed by Liquid again, who announces his plan to hunt down the Patriots using his host's knowledge and the first Metal Gear Ray. Snake escapes to pursue Liquid as Arsenal Gear goes out of control. Arsenal crashes into downtown Manhattan, launching Raiden and Solidus onto the roof of Federal Hall. Solidus attempts to kill Raiden, intending to use his nanomachines to lead him to the Patriots, eliminate them, and form a nation of Sons of Liberty. At this point, Raiden is contacted by another AI, introducing itself as a representative of the Patriots, who reveals that the true purpose of the simulation was to see how they could simulate and control human behavior in order to prevent society from dumbing down due to trivial information, drowning valuable knowledge, and inconvenient truths. Raiden is forced to fight Solidus after the Patriots threaten to kill Olga's child and Rose if he does not cooperate. If you're wondering who Rose is Raiden's love interest and the woman that bears his child. After Solidus' defeat, Snake reveals he planted a tracking device on Liquid's Metal Gear. Snake and Otacon plan to follow him, rescue Olga's child, and hunt down the Patriots, whose details were hidden in the GW computer virus disk. Raiden is finally reunited with Rose on April 30th, 2009. the anniversary of their first meeting. In a brief epilogue, Otacon and Snake discusses the decoding of the virus disk, which contains the personal data on all 12 members of the Patriots High Council. However, it is revealed that all 12 members of the Wiseman's Committee have been dead for about 100 years. Next up in chronological order is Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. This is probably where the story ends. Snake learns that he approximately has a year left due to his accelerated aging thanks to the Enfants Terribles project. Snake is given a mission by Colonel Roy Campbell to assassinate Liquid in the Middle East. It is important to note Liquid is dead, but he lives on through Revolver Ocelot's arm. The ending will kind of explain how this is achieved, but for now just accept that he's proxy Liquid. So Solid Snake infiltrates the area where Liquid and his army is camped in. When he finally gets there, Liquid releases a signal that incapacitates Snake and other soldiers in the area equipped with nanomachines, including the accompanying patrol team led by Meryl. Snake also sights Naomi Hunter again. It's been a while since both characters see each other. The last time that Snake sees Naomi is Metal Gear Solid 1. After some time, Naomi contacts Snake, telling him that she's being forced to do research for Ocelot/Liquid, and asks Snake to rescue her. After rescuing her from an arguably haunting encounter with one of the bosses, Naomi explains that Liquid wants to use biometric data from Big Boss to access the Patriot's AI core and take control of its firearms control system, the SOP. She also explains that Solid's Foxeye virus infection will mutate within 6 months, spreading a more deadly strain to the population. PMCs then arrive to kidnap Naomi. After retrieving her back again from the kidnappers, Snake and Naomi escape with the help of Raiden, who was badly injured following an awesome battle with Vamp.
You too, immortal.
Snake finds an Eastern European resistance group that can heal Raiden and contains Big Boss's remains, allegedly. The group is run by Eva under the alias of Big Mama. She explains the details of the Enfants Terribles project to Solid Snake, but I've already explained that to you earlier. Liquid's forces attack the location. They escape to the riverside on vehicles. The resistance group cleverly used decoy vehicles containing the boss's fake remains to trick Liquid's forces. However, one of them does contain what is actually thought to be the remains of Big Boss. They get to the riverside, in which they are caught and cornered. Liquid reveals that he no longer needs Big Boss's body and that he has already infiltrated the system using his own system core to act as a Trojan. The United States military forces arrive to stop Liquid, but he disables their firearms via his Trojan core, because he's already taken over the weapons side of things. Vamp throws Big Boss's body into the flames. Big Mama follows to save it. Snake's fruitless attempt to save her leaves him with a serious burn on the side of his face. Liquid escapes with Naomi as collateral, but Otacon's robot makes it onto Liquid's boat. Big Mama eventually dies. The next cutscene reveals that Liquid plans to destroy the Patriots' core AI with a nuclear strike using Metal Gear Rex's railgun. Then, he will substitute the core with his own to gain total control. To facilitate his plan, Liquid needs a non-ID tagged nuclear warhead, which is to be recovered from Shadow Moses' facility. Familiar to Snake from prior adventures, i.e. Metal Gear Solid 1, Snake, tormented by old memories, infiltrates Shadow Moses Island and reaches Rex's hangar, only to be ambushed by Vamp, who has Naomi with him. Raiden joins Snake and kills Vamp in another superbly choreographed battle. Naomi, revealing she's riddled with cancer and tormented by her mistakes, disables her nanomachines, holding off the cancer, and dies. Snake and Raiden use Rex to head out of the hangar and battle Metal Gear Ray, piloted by Liquid. Upon his defeat, Liquid reveals Outer Haven, a modified version of Arsenal Gear, and something that also echoes what Big Boss was trying to make back in the previous installments we already talked about. Liquid orders the submarine to ram the dock Snake is on, but Raiden pushes it back. Then, the USS Missouri arrives and starts firing at Outer Haven, forcing it to retreat. Aboard the Missouri, Mei Ling, as a US Navy captain, orders the battleship to intercept Outer Haven. Taking advantage of the moment where Outer Haven rises to fire its nuke, Snake, Meryl, and Johnny board Outer Haven via catapults. When Snake arrives at the core, he uses Otocon's robot to disable the core AI with a computer virus coded by Naomi and Sunny. The virus destroys Liquid's AI core and the Patriot system controlling the entire world, leaving the bare necessity for the modern civilization to survive. The destruction of the Patriots brings the war economy to a halt, counteracts the Patriots' upcoming civilian control scheme, and causes a mental breakdown for the enemy soldiers as their mind control systems are disabled. Snake, after passing out in the core room, awakes atop Outer Haven's tower to find Liquid, and defeats him in a long, grueling, and emotive combat, riddled with references to the previous installments. In the aftermath of the battle, Meryl reconciles with Campbell and marries Johnny, especially after she realizes he looks like Solid Snake. In the game's epilogue, Snake attempts suicide before Big Boss arrives at the gravesite with a vegetative Major Zero on a wheelchair. Big Boss explains that the body burned in Eastern Europe was actually Solid as Snake, the perfect clone, Les Enfants Terribles if you forget, and reveals that the Patriots were originally an interpretation of the will of the boss, his former mentor. We're not talking about Big Boss, the boss from MGS3, back in MGS3. Snake learns that the Patriots were founded by Major Zero, Eva, Ocelot, Sigint, Paramedic, and Big Boss himself. While their power increased, two rival factions arose within the Patriots' ranks, Zeros, who stood for complete control, and Big Bosses, who dreamed of a soldier's refuge. He also explains that Ocelot purposefully used nanomachines and hypnotherapy to implant the persona of Liquid as his own. Over the years, Zero let the newly established AI network assume control, eventually leading to dependence on the war economy, a vision far from the boss's original will. Big Boss kills Zero by turning off his wheelchair's life support, and then informs Snake that the nanomachines Drebin injected into him came with the new strain of Foxdie, engineered by the Patriot AIs to eradicate the old strains and to kill the rival Patriot faction. Thus, Snake's presence will kill Big Boss, because Big Boss was one of the rival Patriot factions within the Patriots. After finally understanding his mentor's will and telling Snake to find a new reason to keep on living, Big Boss dies beside the boss's grave. Taking his father's word to heart, Snake then decides to live out the rest of his life peacefully with Otacon and Sunny, vowing to live long enough to see what the future holds for the new world he has helped create. Interesting note, it turns out that Ursula was right all along. From Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops. Just interesting thought. Thank you very much for watching, guys, if you managed to get up to this far. This video took a gargantuan amount of time to make, and it was very important for me to be able to share with you the story in a proper way. There will be many things I missed. Most of the villains have interesting backstories to themselves, and the encounters, most of the time Hideo Kojima makes really innovative encounters with bosses, making you do weird shit and stuff that's just never been seen before. But obviously this video is near the hour mark, and there's many things I missed. If you have specific questions about the Metal Gear saga or about any specific characters, please feel free to drop a comment below. The community or I am more than happy to answer it, make another video. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope that sharpens your interest. I'm 2 days late behind playing Metal Gear 5 because I wanted to share this video with the community, and yeah, any errors are my own. There's one more thing. Revengeance. I omitted Revengeance for the sake of time. I know it is canon and it should be in the timeline. I do recognize that it is in the timeline if you look at the list at the beginning, but I decided to trim that off because this video gets too long. At some point in the future, I may make a separate one on Revengeance. However, I'm going to go and play Metal Gear 5 and make a complete story so that this guide is in actual fact complete. And that's it, guys. God bless.